city of Greensboro prides itself on leading the way among the Triad cities as well as across the state when it comes to providing the right fit at the right time for economic development. One particular way the city accomplishes this is through the use of incentives. At the forefront of this initiative is John Schaffner, the city's economic development manager. How does the topic of incentives usually come up when recruiting businesses to Greensboro?
Well, we have our regular economic development incentives, and what that is we look at we do an analysis of the project. We look at the new tax money, property tax money the project's going to be creating, and also the incremental sales tax money the projects are creating, and then try to come up with an incentive amount that'll help to win the project to Greensboro and make it possible for the company to expand or relocate to this area. And then the city's preferred method is to try to assist companies, both large and small businesses, to expand their business through non-cash economic development incentives. And that's done through a variety of ways. One is our development services process, trying to create an environment that makes it conducive to companies to grow and expand here as efficiently as possible so that we're able to compete against other cities across the world.
Along with his colleagues, they develop and provide incentives on the city's behalf to qualified companies that want to relocate to Greensboro or to existing companies that wish to expand. John, does the city frequently offer incentives to entice businesses to relocate to Greensboro or expand their operations within the area?
Well, incentives are not a tool that we lead with. Generally, it's something that comes at the request of the company as they're looking to try to make a project happen. A lot of times, we partner with the local management team because in a lot of cases, particularly the larger multinational companies, the local management team has to compete against other facilities across the country and around the world. So we try to partner with our local businesses to help to create a compelling business case to bring that project and those new jobs to Greensboro. The parent companies are generally creating a competitive situation where each one of the facilities has to compete for the project, and in a lot of cases the incentives are the necessary tool to make one area lead the pack ahead of other competing locales.
The city's Economic Development and Business Support Office works with various partners to promote Greensboro as the place to locate and grow business. The services of the EDBS office also assists to coordinate available properties for redevelopment or development and determine if any city incentives are available. How do you determine which type of incentive is the best fit for the city to leverage with a particular company, and how do you calculate its overall worth?
Once we've done our analysis of the project, we would make an incentive offer to the company, and that's of course contingent on the company being financially viable and passing through the various due diligence we do on the company. But we would generally look at make that incentive offer to the company, and then they would, in most cases, they take that offer, they go back to their corporate parent, and they'll crunch the numbers and try to determine which city makes the most sense for their new operations.
The EDBS office works to stay current on the latest local, state, and federal tax and other incentives designed to keep business owners informed on cost-effective ways to operate their business within the city.
Our standard economic development incentive guidelines have three criteria. One is a job creation criteria, the other one is a capital investment criteria, and the third one is that the jobs pay the Guilford County average wage at or above the Guilford County average wage. About $42,000 a year is the average salary for the area. Plus we look for the jobs to provide medical insurance. The minimum requirement is that the company meet 2 out of those 3 minimum criteria. So if they were creating large numbers of jobs or large amount of capital investment, and the jobs are paying less than the county average, that could make them eligible for consideration. Our guidelines are also guidelines, not policy, so the elected officials do have the opportunity to make exceptions if a specific case merits an exception to the guidelines.
How much involvement does City Council have in determining the amount of incentive the city offers per project?
Every incentive comes in has to go in front of a public hearing, so City Council and the community hears all of the pluses and minuses that have been identified associated with the request and the incentive offer that's being made. And based on that knowledge of what the financial return is on the project, what their community impact is going to be, how committed they are to the community, the types of jobs, numbers of jobs that they're being provided, council would then take a vote. The public would have an opportunity to speak for or against the incentive, and then taking all that information into account, City Council would make a vote on whether or not to support or reject the incentive.
Does the city ever find that it has to increase the initial incentive offer to remain competitive for a project?
We want the project to be a win for the community and a win for the company. So we've never had a case where we've gone back and increased our incentive offer. We generally make a competitive offer the first time it goes out, and it's not to say that it could never be done, but our case has been to put our best foot forward initially, and you work with the company on that particular offer.
More and more companies are deciding to take advantage of the pro-business attitude that exists here. The city's numerous departmental resources are eager to assist qualified companies that are in the position to positively impact the area's economy. And John, how does the city determine if an incentive request made by a company is going to be the deciding factor that wins Greensboro a particular project?
Well, one, I think we have to understand what the competitive situation is. What are you trying to do? What are you offering the community in the way of new jobs, capital investment, and the wages that you're going to pay the employees? And then we look at, well, what's the competitive situation? Because some of the things that the city already does to, by running as efficiently as possible, we're able to keep taxes low. We're able to provide a stable, safe environment. We provide city parks and a good quality of life, and so all those, and a good school system. So I think all those are very, very important assets that you've got to look at when you're looking at expanding or moving your business. And so wherever you go in the country, you're going to have to evaluate those opportunities. Those assets, and of course those assets have to be paid for. So there has to be a balance of what we're offering you in the way of a pro-business environment and quality of life, as well as the incentives to have to make the project work financially. And the company has to kind of look at all those factors, I think, and try to determine whether or not location A is better than location B. So incentives, I think, are just one piece of the puzzle. And luckily in this area, we do have a very good quality of life. We've got a good school system. We've got a very good community college system. We've got over 40,000 college students in the area. So all that gives Greensboro, I think, a very strategic advantage in competing for new companies that, and generally, we're not going to be we're not going to be offering the highest amount of the incentives, but when you look at the total package, in a lot of cases, it's a compelling case for a company to locate or expand here.
One example of an existing business which has successfully taken advantage of the incentive resource offered by the city is Deep Roots Market. Bobby, what I really want to get a sense of is your involvement in the project called Deep Roots. Why you consider it a good project to invest in, to be involved in, and why it's good for downtown in general.
Okay, I'm one of 3 partners in a corporation called North Eugene Partners. We had bought the 1-acre lot about 5 years ago because we thought it was a great location for future development downtown. And the way the lot laid out, we thought it was a great retail location because we'd be able to provide significant on-site parking. After a few years, we heard that Deep Roots was looking for a new location, and we approached them and asked them to consider our site to open up a grocery store. And after they probably took a year looking at different sites, they started to work with us and committed to signing a lease. One of the 2 big factors for them were being downtown. They thought it was an untapped market. And number 2, it was going to be on the Greenway.
So tell me about the city's involvement and why that was critical to getting it all done.
There were 2 components. I think the first had to do with the location being on the Greenway. Deep Roots is in is really looking forward to the Greenway being there. They're having an outdoor cafe. They're going to have a bicycle air station and repair kits. They're going to have a dog watering station, so if you're walking your dog, you can get water for your dog. And they have a great sense of community, and so I think that was one of the reasons.
With the tax incentives and with the forgivable loan, how that all worked to the project's advantage to make it happen, and what the city, why it was good that the city got involved.
And here's, before we start, here's I think is John's philosophy. In other words, the property value increased greatly. Therefore, the tax value increased greatly. And the gap financing is the financing through the incremental tax that we will be paying. So that's basically how it's justified. In other words, let's just say I was paying $5,000 a year in taxes for that property before Deep Roots. I'll be paying $15,000 a year in taxes. That's $10,000 more. And that's where the justification comes for the financing. That was extra revenue to the city, and they justify that by giving us a loan to bridge the loss of revenue from not having City Corp there.
Oh, okay. So the loan is for how long and how much and for what terms?
I believe the loan is 20 years, and I think it was like $150,000.
Yeah, so what would you say about a developer and the city partnering and the city stepping up when there is a need for gap financing?
It's a critical stage, especially in underutilized areas, especially in the downtown areas. Downtown development is inherently more difficult than going out in the country because you have constraints on the infrastructure. The amount of land you can buy to develop something is not that large. And a good example is Deep Roots needed the city financial building to leave because they needed the parking. A grocery store will not survive unless they have ample parking. If you go outside the city limits, you can purchase all the parking you want. So city incentives in the downtown areas where you have to infill and work around existing infrastructure is more difficult than going outside of the city limits.
Deep Roots owners created a store model that specializes in healthy and organic foods. Store representatives say some customers travel as many as 15 miles to the location on Spring Garden Street. Thanks to the city's filling in those funding gaps with its incentive loan, some of those same customers will now go a couple of more miles to the new downtown location when it's completed, joining what the company expects to be a number of new customers and hopefully spurring other development in downtown Greensboro.